Hey everybody, Amy White with Worthy Written Words. Today we're going to be in our wide margin Doctrine and Covenants, section 89, verses 18 to 21. Now to get started, I'm placing some of these hands and baby stickers on the margins so that I can take these pipe cleaners and tie them together so it makes one long pipe cleaner. And then using what I have on my margin, I can mold these pipe cleaners around the baby and make a few DNA helixes by taking the pipe cleaner and twisting it around and then forming another one and twisting it around. And I'm going to make the one on the bottom the biggest, and then I'm going to do 2 or 3 smaller ones above that. And then any extra that I have, I will just cut off the excess. But I want to make sure to leave enough space at the top so that it can go up into the knitting needles of the hands. So make sure you have enough for that and then cut off any extra that you might have. And the extra that we have, I'm going to use as putting in what you might call the ladder rungs inside the DNA helixes. And I am again going to take the pipe cleaner and I'm going to twist it around the sides to attach it, and I'm going to do about 2 ladder rungs in between each of these helixes. When you have your DNA helix the way that you want it, then we can start to heat up our hot glue gun. And while that's heating up, we are going to take a pair of scissors and start trimming down all of the fuzz on the pipe cleaner. So you don't need it to be all the way down to the wire, but with the way that the pipe cleaner is now, if you wrap around the yarn, it's going to have the white fuzzies will be poking out. So we're going to trim it down so that it's easier to cover with the yarn. If you have the patience, it would be best to just do the entire thing before you get started with the yarn, but I was a little too anxious to see how it would work with the yarn wrapped around, and so I only did one section at a time, and then I add the yarn, and then I cut the next section at a time. So you can choose which way you want to do it. Now when you're going to be putting the yarn on the helix, you want to create it so that there is a front and a back. And the back side is what's going to be glued to your page. And any sort of gluing that you do with the yarn, make sure you're gluing it to the back side of this structure. Otherwise, you'll see it from the front. Also, with the yarn, you can just start with one end of the yarn and wrap it all the way around, never stopping, and the colors will change as you can see on the yarn. Or you can do what I did because I'm a control freak and wanted to know exactly what colors I wanted to use were on there. I started with the blue section and I just cut the blue off of the yarn so that when I was out of the blue, I could add more blue or change it to a color that I did want. And I just start at one end and start wrapping the yarn around until I need to glue it. And remember, again, make sure you're gluing on the back side. This is where a lot of your creativity will come in and how you want to do this yarn setup. I decided I did not want to put the red on, so I did all the colors but the red, and I believe the orange as well, but I did do the red and the orange up in the bookmark. You may want to do all the colors. I was trying to avoid it looking too much like a political statement, which is unfortunate, but that was kind of my thinking with that. And I did my favorite colors, which were the blue and the purple, and then yellow and green kind of went along with it. So you can decide how you want to do this. The yarn is really big, so it should cover a lot pretty quickly, unless you are doing it really loose. So you might want to make sure you're doing it tight enough. When you get to the end, make sure that you have the yarn glued to the top of the helix to where it is longer than it needs to be. So that way you can take this yarn and wrap it around the knitting needles without the wire getting in the way, so it's just loose yarn. So you can tuck it up underneath the hand knitting needles. So leave it longer and then we'll trim the tops after we are putting this on our page. Now to make it so that the hands are popping off the page so there's room for the yarn to go underneath them, I'm taking some 3D foam squares and attaching them to the hands. So one on each hand, and then I take one and cut it in half to use on the arms. And then I line these hands up just with the top of my page so that they are right along the top and in the middle of the margin. Now I'm going to take my helix, and with the glue side facing down, I'm going to take the yarn and slip it underneath those knitting needles and wrap it around, and then we can hot glue them where we want it all, the whole piece. We'll hot glue in specific places so that it will stay where we want it to go. So first I am folding over the yarn across the knitting needles and letting it hang down the opposite direction. And then I'm going to put some hot glue on the back side of the helix and attach it to the page. Now when I get to the bottom part, I want to put this sticker on my margin, and so this way I can line it up so that it lines up perfectly with this bottom part of the DNA strand. And then when I have the sticker where I want it, then using the hot glue, I'm going to attach the bottom part of this DNA strand to my margin. Now the next few videos I need to apologize for. My son broke the part that holds my camera above me, and so I am holding my phone with one hand and trying to create the page with the other, and so it is a hot mess. It was a hot mess, and then luckily I got the next piece that I needed the next day and I could finish up. So I like to take a pair of scissors and cut out these word strips, and then I can figure out what order I want them to go in the bottom margin, in the footnotes. And then when I figure out where I want those to go, then I will put them down. And the same thing goes for the title that I'm going to put up at the top of the page. Now for the tab, I'm going to put the tab label, either Word of Wisdom or I Am a Child of God, depending on what book of scripture you're making this for. And I'm going to put that on the top of my tab, and then using some AdTech Microdot craft tape, I'm going to apply this tab to the top of my margin on my book. Wow, that was rough. Thanks for sticking in there with me while we got through that. Now, for the last piece of this page, I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to wrap it around about 16 to 19 times around my hand. And I want to leave some of it at the end off. You can see I have a piece that's about 4 to 6 inches, and I'm going to tie that around the center of this little loop of yarn that I've made around my fingers. I'm going to tie it really tight into a knot. And then using a pair of scissors, I'm going to go in and I'm going to trim all of these loops. I'm going to do this on both sides so that all of the loops are cut open, and then I'm going to trim with the pair of scissors the entire ball so that it's a lot shorter and so that all of the yarn is more even throughout. And then I'm going to use the hot glue gun, and I'm going to hot glue, put like a dab of it. Probably where I have the part in the middle is where I'm going to put, you can see I've put it in the middle where I've tied that right on there. And then I'm going to put the paper clip on it, and I'm going to glue the pom-pom around it on either side. And then you can fluff the ball, and if it's still too skiwampy, you can still trim it down more if you need to. It doesn't hurt to make it smaller. You can choose what size you want it to be. And then when you're done with that, you can put it on your page. And I actually secured this one in place by lifting up the Fearfully and Wonderfully Made sticker and attaching it on top of this paper clip. And that is it. That is how we did this page. I hope you guys had an awesome time learning how to do that. And of course, don't forget to fill in the highlighted sections with the different color of microliners or whatever colored pencils that you might have or crayons that match. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.